think I might have just photographed the best Opeth concert they've ever performed. This was my second time seeing them live, and I've seen several of their live DVDs. However, there's something really special going on with the band on this tour in particular. If you've seen them on this run, let me know if you agree with what I'm about to say on episode 190 of Heavy Metal Philosophy. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, Jon Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's Riff of the Week. All right, to get started, let me just say, I don't know if I'll ever get used to getting photo passes to these shows. However, this one seemed even crazier than normal because I'm such a huge Opeth fan. So needless to say, I was stoked for this show, and I have been for a long time. I knew it was going to be fun, but I wasn't expecting this. This was so much more than I expected and so much different than any show that I've ever shot before. First of all, it was at the Tabernacle in Atlanta. This is a much different venue than normal because it's aptly named. It was remodeled and made from an old Baptist tabernacle church. A lot of that old decorated wooden molding still remains, and the stage still has the pipes from their giant organ. And I'm used to working the new venues like the Masquerade and Center Stage and the Eastern and others like that. And don't get me wrong, all those venues are excellent, especially thanks to their fantastic staff, but the buildings are concrete. There's just a lot of brutalist architecture in Atlanta. The Tabernacle is wood, so it has a more organic and homegrown feeling to it. Definitely a different vibe. I texted one of my best friends after the show and said, man, that was almost like a religious experience. And I think Opeth would have delivered anyway, but this added element certainly didn't hurt. So I rolled up to the box office a few hours before the show to check in with the staff, present my credentials, and get my photo pass. And when they handed it to me, I saw the Live Nation logo on it, and I thought to myself, oh no. Because those of you who have been subscribed for a long time, you might remember the experience I had at a different Live Nation venue shooting the Baby Metal and Death Clock show. That other Live Nation venue was the Roxy, also in Atlanta. And the corporate rules for that show was no cameras were allowed in the venue unless it was during approved times. Now, the industry standard for concert photography is the photographers are allowed in the photo pit for the first 3 songs of every band's set. So, the approved times is 3 songs out of every band's set. And outside of those approved times, I can't have my camera in the building. I was told I would have to put it in my car and watch the rest of the band set that way. Well, I was parked about a mile away and there were 3 bands on this bill. So I wasn't about to shoot 3 songs, leave the venue, walk to my car, put my camera in the car, walk back, then finish the rest of the band set, then walk back to my car before the next band set, get my camera, walk back to the venue, shoot the 3 songs, then walk back to my car. No, I'm not doing all of that. So how did we do it? Well, one of the staff from that venue escorted me outside of the building after the first 3 songs. And then I just waited outside the venue with my camera. And then when the next band was about to get up, my escort would come get me, bring me back into the venue and escort me to the photo pit. So that's how the Death Clock show went for me. I just did a lot of waiting outside the venue, holding my camera. At least I got to talk to the other photographers, but just standing there with my camera. And then when the next band was about to go up, my escort would come and get me and bring me to the photo pit. So when I saw that Live Nation logo, I was worried. I was like, oh no, please don't let this be like this again. I'm not going to have to wait outside during Opeth's set, am I? I even had the same escort from the other venue to escort me for this one. And, you know, he's a super cool guy. We remembered each other and chatted. He's very nice. He's just doing his job. He didn't make the rules, but he did explain to me the rules for this show, and thankfully they were much different. But this show was a new experience for me as well because the entire venue was seated. The Tabernacle normally has a big open area in front of the stage that's general admission and standing only. But for some reason that I don't know, It was all seats. Even in the open area, they put down nice folding chairs with numbers on them that were assigned seats, even right in front of the stage. I don't know why. Michael said at some point during the show that it wasn't his idea, so I don't know, but that was weird. So at this point, I'm worried that the show's not going to be good because everybody's stuck in a seat. But thankfully, Opeth proved me wrong. I was assigned a pretty decent seat almost all the way up front, and I was allowed to leave my seat for the first 15 minutes of every band set in order to take photos. Now, that was a new rule for me, which provided another challenge I'd never had before. You know, it's really easy when the rules are normal and the rules are your first 3 songs like I talked about earlier. 3 songs are easy to keep track of, but 15 minutes? How do I even track that? Especially for Opeth, that's what, like 2 songs? And then because there were seats right up against the stage, I also didn't have a photo pit to move around in. And, you know, don't get me wrong, getting a pass is a privilege, so I'm not complaining. It just meant that I had to shoot from the crowd, which is a challenge. But I've done it before. Longtime subscribers will remember I did it during the Tomb Mold and Horrendous show. So getting on to the show, the first band up was called Tribulation. Leading up to this, I had heard from people that were pretty hyped for this band, but personally, I wasn't familiar, so I went in with no expectations. They were like a blackened goth band. It had black metal vocals, some also clean goth vocals, all swagger. You can see from my photos that had sort of a Lost Boys vampire look. If you're into bands like Unto Others, you'd probably dig this band. They might even be a little bit heavier. They put on a good show. But it seemed to me like the seats were keeping the audience from fully enjoying the show, and I'm still worrying about this. About half the crowd was sitting down, and I thought to myself, surely when Opeth comes out here, no one will be sitting, right? And then I thought, well, their new music, it is kind of chill. They might be going for sort of a listening room vibe. And then I thought, oh no, that's not what this is it? Again, thankfully, I was wrong. When Opeth took the stage, Atlanta erupted. It was like when the audience pops at a pro wrestling event. That wood was practically reverberating in the room. Not a soul was sitting. Everyone was on their feet. So I got up out of my seat and I went to the stage to try to get as many shots as I can within my allotted 15 minutes. And here, once again, I'm going to apologize to the audio-only listeners of the podcast. You won't be able to see the photos I'm putting in the video portion. However, if you really want to see them, you can catch them on my website, HeavyMetalPhilosophy.com. They should be uploaded by the time this airs, if not, shortly thereafter. Now here, when I started to take photos, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I've been doing this a lot lately, so I've sort of gotten used to being close to these musicians. But when I was close to Michael, I kind of freaked out a little bit on the inside. I mean, this guy is one of my musical heroes, and I was 6 inches away from him. But I only let myself freak out for a second. I thought to myself, John, you've got a job to do. Do it. So I started snapping. And a few minutes in, I started to realize something. Because as I said, I've seen them live before. And I've watched several of their great live DVDs like the Roundhouse tapes. And the last time I saw them live, it really wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple of years ago, the last time they were in Atlanta with Mastodon. And it's Opeth, one of my favorite bands. So of course, last time when I saw them, I was excited. But I'm just saying, they didn't do much headbanging or moving around on stage. I figured, well, they're really technical prog, and the songs are very complicated, so they probably have to concentrate a lot more than your average caveman riff death metal band. And besides, they always have this big screen on stage to show this psychedelic imagery to entertain us while they play the songs. So leading up to this, I figured they'd give us more of that. And they did give us that. And also they gave us way more than I was expecting. Atlanta was really on fire for this one. The cheers were extra loud. And the band seemed to really be enjoying themselves. I thought a couple of times I caught a glimpse of them looking at each other like, look at these people. And Michael was smiling from ear to ear as the audience sang his part of In My Time of Need for him. It really felt like magic in there, like we were conjuring something. He just stood there with a big smile on his face as he sort of took it all in. And after that, the band just seemed to have so much energy in response to the crowd. They were really putting it into their performance. There was lots of headbanging, and it just seemed like the band was just happy to be there with each other to experience this. Several times Michael came over and rocked out with Frederick, and then there was also a lot of fun banter between him and the other band members. And speaking of banter, all of us Opeth fans really enjoy Michael's stage banter in between songs. He's so charming, and his dry humor will just catch you off guard and make you laugh, but he just seemed to be extra playful on this night.
Today, a little bit better. It's because I prayed to Jesus.
He even played a few Pink Floyd riffs just to play around with us.
When we're a cover band, everything is going to become a disappointment after that.
And he played with the band too. Him and Frederick would trade back and forth some of their favorite riffs between songs. They just seemed happy to be there with each other, happy to be in a band with such good players, just smiling at each other the whole time. And it sort of reminded me of that interview he did with Ola England where he talked about the band gelling together now.
We
Gelled.
yes, and we were like, okay, something's happening.
Became stronger of a unity.
Much stronger. And I tell you, to play those songs, I could all of a sudden hear us.
Yeah.
And before, on stage, I could only hear me, only focusing on me. I have to play the right thing, but like for once, it felt like we were operating as a unit, as opposed to individual musicians. And that was a great feeling, and it really made us gel as people and as a band.
Then I started to feel this reciprocal energy because I was just so happy to see some of my favorite musicians being happy. And I can't speak for everyone else, but it seemed to me like the rest of the audience noticed it too. So we just kept giving it, and the band just kept giving it back. So now, after my 15 minutes are up, I think, I went back to my seat. So normally about this time at a photo gig, I go out and I start looking for cool action or weird people to photograph, because after the first 3 songs at a standard show, I go back out into general admission. But since this was Opeth, I just went back to my seat to enjoy the show. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, for some shows after my first 3 songs, when my work is done, I leave a little bit early because your boy lives a couple of hours away from Atlanta and I gotta drive home. But not for Opeth. I was staying for this show. It was amazing. If you get a chance to see them on this tour, you have to do it. I have never seen them on fire like they are right now. And, some of it was the crowd. The band said that Atlanta was the best crowd they had played for on this run.
I have to say, I'm overwhelmed with you guys. It's been fucking great.
If y'all have seen them in other cities, please comment and let me know if they said something similar to you all. But I went and I talked to people after the show was over to see if they also felt like this was a special night, and it seemed pretty unanimous. And I talked to the other photographers that were also working that show, and they felt the same. Which, by the way, I've made friends with several of the photographers that regularly work the Atlanta scene, and I've been in the pit with this dude named Xerxes several times who's given me a lot of great advice since I'm relatively new to photography. And yes, his name is Xerxes, and the first time I met him, I said, "Damn, that's a cool name." So on this night, I met another new photographer, and this was his first big show. Opeth is a crazy show for your first big show. It reminds me of Rotting Christ being my first ever show. At least this guy had built a portfolio of local bands he had photographed so that he at least had something that he could show to the tour manager / PR people to get his pass. I got thrown into the deep end on behalf of Metal Digest, and I'm glad I did, because now I've also got a portfolio that I can be proud of. Anyway, so I introduced myself to this guy, and he told me his name is Mars. And I was like, "Damn, your name is Mars? His name is Xerxes? My name is just Jon." Anyway, it's great to be a part of this Atlanta community. I'm really happy that everybody seems to be so cool. And speaking of Atlanta's metal community, before I jump into this week's Riff of the Week, a few of you recognized me and said something to me at the show, so I want to give a big thank you to Benjamin, Alan, and Katie. Thank you for coming and saying something to me. That made me really happy, and I really hope that my introverted weirdo self wasn't too awkward about it, but thank you. And that brings us to the Riff of the Week. But before I play you the super weird and awesome Riff of the Week, let me tell y'all this show is recorded here in the cabin in the woods, deep in the wilderness of Georgia. And in honor of that, and in honor of fall coming, thank God, I'm dropping the fall collection in the Heavy Metal Philosophy merch store, featuring the Cabin in the Woods artwork by the great Nocturno. Thank you, Nocturno. These are available in soft t-shirts, long sleeves like you can see here, and hoodies, but they're only available during the fall. Once the fall is over, these designs will go away forever. So links in the description, get yours while you still can. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love